starting with 1 million luck points. Chapter 26. Zhou Suiwo's eyes widened when he saw this. He stammered, this is Scarlet Bloodvine, Rhino Horn, Zhou Hao said softly. With these two, Mother should be able to repay the company's debt, right? Zhou Suiwo leaned closer and stared at the two things in Zhou Hao's hand. After a long while, he said shakily, "Son, where did you get this?" He knew very well that these two materials were very expensive. They cost at least 500,000 yuan. Moreover, judging from the quality, it was probably top-notch and even more expensive. Zhou Hao knew his father's personality. If he didn't give him a convincing source, Zhou Suiwo would definitely not take it to repay his debt. "Dad, one of my classmates gave it to me," Zhou Hao stammered. "In your class? Was it Su Ling from the Su family?" Zhou Suiwo asked directly. Zhou Hao nodded. Zhou Suiwo immediately understood and did not know whether to laugh or to cry. "Son, why would you ask them? These two things are very expensive. No matter how good your relationship with her is, we can't ask for such a huge favor. We'll return them tomorrow." Zhou Hao hurriedly said, "Dad, if I return it, what will Su Ling think? She'll think that I'm disrespecting her." Zhou Suiwo thought about it and felt that his son was right. A daughter from such a rich family would definitely not accept a returned gift. If Zhou Hao forced her to take it back, he might even anger her. However, for Miss Su to casually give away such a valuable item, it seemed like her relationship with their son was not simple. After hesitating for a while, Zhou Suiwo still accepted the Scarlet Bloodvine and the Rhino Horn. However, he said righteously, "Son, this won't happen again. As for these two materials, consider them as borrowed money. I'll write an IOU later and you can give it to her." Zhou Hao nodded. Soon, Zhou Suiwo handed over the IOU. "Keep it well. Don't lose it." After Zhou Suiwo left, Zhou Hao returned to the bed and pondered alone. Based on Zhou Suiwo's reaction to the two materials, Zhou Hao's parents would probably be scared silly if he showed them the millions of yuan in his card. After all, there were 6 million in the card. If he sold the other demon beast materials, he could accumulate more than 10 million. It was not easy for him to explain where he got such a huge sum of money. Unless he revealed his strength. But if that happened, his parents would probably be even more worried. This was because they knew very well that the stronger one was, the greater the responsibility. Furthermore, with his parents' personality, they probably also wouldn't let him hide in the city and be a coward. "Regardless of whether or not I have money, I still have to end up worrying. Looks like I can't just sit idly in school." Zhou Hao lay on the bed helplessly with his hands behind his head. The next day, the warm morning sun shone on Chu City High School. As soon as Zhou Hao entered the classroom, he heard a chaotic discussion. The aftermath of yesterday's tournament had not subsided yet. The topics of discussion among the students in the class were basically all about the tournament. Sitting in his seat, he habitually opened the virtual screen. On it, the luck points read, 53,000, current level, overwhelming luck. After opening the mystery boxes last night, Zhou Hao had also killed the red spot python and the iron-toothed dragon alligator, allowing him to accumulate more than 50,000 luck points. The king-level iron-toothed dragon alligator alone got him 50,000 luck points. However, he was in no hurry to open any mystery boxes. He planned to accumulate more luck points before opening more boxes. He browsed the heated chat hall and the mystery boxes for more information before turning off the virtual screen. Not long after, a refreshing fragrance surged over. He looked up and met Su Ling's gaze. "Don't think that you can relax just because you paid off your debt. If you don't break through to the first level of blood essence, you won't even be able to find a job after you graduate," Su Ling said coldly as she sat down. Then, without looking back, she left as her long black back swayed around. Zhou Hao couldn't help but laugh. This Su Ling probably had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. He hadn't realized it before. However, seeing that Su Ling still had the mood to lecture him, it was likely that Su Ling had already recovered from her frightened state last night. Ring ring. As soon as class began, the homeroom teacher strode in, surprising the students. Why is the homeroom teacher here? If I remember correctly, we have material science during this period. I don't know. The homeroom teacher ignored the discussion below and swept his gaze around. His eyes landed on Su Ling and Zhang Yi before he smiled and said, "Our class did well in the tournament yesterday. Su Ling and Zhang Yi have entered the top 5. They're worthy of praise." He led the applause, and the students below followed suit. However, the homeroom teacher's tone suddenly changed. Due to the accidents yesterday, many students were unable to participate in the tournament. The school leaders discussed it overnight and prepared to hold another competition in 3 days. The rewards will be doubled. Chapter 27. The moment the homeroom teacher said this, there was an uproar in the class. More than 5 million yuan. That's probably how much all the testing equipment cost. Zhou Hao was stunned as well. He did not understand why the school would hold another competition. Silence. The homeroom teacher looked up and pressed his palms down. The voices quickly disappeared. The homeroom teacher continued, "This competition is different from last time. It's a combat assessment. In other words, you won't be facing students from other classes but mutated beasts from the wilderness." Upon hearing this, the class fell silent. Their eyes widened in disbelief. Heavens! A combat assessment competition. And it was even against the mutated beasts in the wilderness. They all thought that they had misheard. Although planet Earth was currently facing the invasion of foreign races, most high schools rarely held actual combat training. After all, high school students were all in the stage of establishing their blood essence. Only after entering university would they specialize in combat training. Of course, it was said that some top high schools would have combat assessments. However, the problem was that their Chu City High School was only an ordinary high school. Not to mention top-notch, they couldn't even be considered to be one of the top high schools. Now, they wanted their students to participate in a combat assessment competition? Are the school leaders thinking straight? That's right, are you kidding me? We aren't even martial artists, so why would we take a combat assessment? Has anyone here ever killed a chicken? I've never killed a chicken, but I've killed green insects. Soon, the originally quiet classroom was drowned by a large number of voices. There were also sounds coming from the classroom outside. It seemed like everyone was furious. In the principal's office, Principal Zheng smiled bitterly. He looked at the man who was as calm as a mountain beside him and said helplessly, "Instructor Shen, I've already done as you instructed and got the homeroom teachers to send the news. It's just that, our school has never had a combat assessment before. Moreover, the students can't make any preparations within just 3 days. If anything happened to them, then we would have a very serious situation on our hands." Department Director Hong, who was standing on the left side of the door, said casually, with the instructor around, "How could anything go wrong?" The calm man, Instructor Shen, glared at Department Director Hong. The fierce-looking Department Director Hong lowered his head obediently like a child. The elegant dean could not help but whisper, "Instructor Shen, Principal Zheng, and I understand that you want to find that peerless genius, but isn't the combat assessment too risky?" Instructor Shen took a sip of tea. Slowly standing up, he said indifferently, "As I said, with the evidence you provided, I am still unable to confirm the strength of that peerless genius. Therefore, this combat assessment is absolutely necessary. As for safety, don't worry. With me here, they will be all right." Boom. An extremely strong blood essence pressure emitted from his body. Principal Zheng and the dean immediately stood up in shock. A high-level grandmaster. They did not expect that the instructor Shen that department director Hong had invited was actually a high-level grandmaster. Only a high-level grandmaster could produce blood essence pressure so casually. With Lord Shen around, we can rest assured, Principal Zheng said hurriedly. Yes, yes, yes. We'll do as Instructor Shen says. The dean hurriedly nodded. With a high-level grandmaster holding down the fort, not to mention mutated beasts, even general-level demon beasts could be easily dealt with. Instructor Shen did not care about Principal Zheng and the dean's reaction. He sat back in his seat and smiled. If we can really confirm that the peerless genius has the strength of a high-level martial artist, I will personally stay and nurture him with special methods. At this point, his tone changed as he looked at Department Director Hong. If not, little Hong, you should know what kind of punishment awaits. Department Director Hong's expression turned slightly, and he had a bitter expression. Instructor, given my current state, can't you just let me off the hook this one time? Instructor Shen smiled and said, well, we'll see about that. While the 20-year 3 classes were bustling with noise. In an abandoned warehouse in the school. Long, thin vines like tentacles extended in the air and waved continuously. This was a low-level demon beast and a spy from the demon race. It was the thousand vine flower. Unlike the blatant green insects of the insect race, the thousand vine flower of the demon race was much more secretive and extremely difficult to discover. The various intelligence it collected had already brought great destruction to humans. Competition, combat assessment, peerless genius, as the beast waved its tentacles, information was being received. The thousand vine flower quickly gathered its vines and then transmitted the information it had gathered in a special way. However, the thousand vine flower's transmission speed was very slow and could not compare to the green insects in this regard. At this moment, the school leaders and instructor Shen were still unaware of what was going on. Chapter 28. All the Year 3 classes were noisy the entire day. Some agreed with the combat assessment and felt that it was natural since their goal in practicing martial arts was to kill foreign races and protect the city. Some disagreed, thinking that high school students should focus on laying the foundation. Actual combat should only be considered after one became a martial artist. In front of Zhou Hao's seat, Su Ling was also discussing with her desk mate. Fortunately, I didn't enroll. Otherwise, my legs would have gone weak at the thought of fighting a mutated beast. Su Ling's desk mate rejoiced. However, Su Ling shook her head and said, the purpose of practicing martial arts is to fight the foreign races. By coming into contact with actual combat in advance, it can also hone our mental state. This way, we won't be frightened when we encounter the foreign races in the future. She thought of the blue-horned blood wolf she had faced last night. She did not want to experience that despairing fear again, so she yearned for actual combat even more. Only through actual combat could an individual be trained properly. Zhou Hao could see the determination in Su Ling's eyes from the side of her cold face. Good luck. He thought to himself. The combat assessment did not affect him much. As for this reward, to be honest, after figuring out his strength, he really didn't care. After all, the material of any low-level demon general would fetch him at least 3 million yuan. Moreover, he still had a king-level demon beast corpse in his black tortoise set backpack. If he sold it, it would fetch a sky-high price. However, he planned to sign up for the combat assessment and perform a little. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain the money he earned to his parents. After school, he took the subway to the Underground Alliance Mall again. The Martial Artist Union also accepted demon beast materials. However, it was more regulated compared to the Underground Alliance Mall. Chi. After entering the hall on the first floor of the mall, he turned around and went to the washroom. With a thought, the black tortoise set immediately covered his entire body, forming a red armor. Walking out, many martial artists looked over. Zhou Hao's red armor was clearly high-grade armor. To be able to wear such armor, others could tell that his strength was not low. When he arrived at the 12th floor, almost 90% of the people here were collecting foreign race beast materials. In fact, there were only materials trading shops above the 7th floor of the mall. However, the shops on the 12th floor only traded with general level materials and above. He casually chose a shop. As soon as he walked in, a tall and hot woman immediately greeted him with a smile. "Welcome. Are you selling materials, making custom weapons and battle armor, or buying armor? My shop's price is absolutely fair, and the quality is not low," the woman said with a smile. Zhou Hao pretended to have a deep voice and said, "I want to sell materials and also make a custom weapon." The woman's eyes lit up. The cost of making weapons was not low. She quickly reached out. "Please come with me." She immediately brought Zhou Hao into the inner room and quickly received a cup of hot tea before handing it to him. "May I ask what's the level of the material you're selling?" Zhou Hao was in no hurry to answer. He swept his gaze across the room and frowned. "Is there a bigger room?" The woman was stunned. "Do you? It's like this. I haven't had the chance to cut the corpse and collect the material," Zhou Hao replied. He added, "And this room is simply too small." The tall and fiery woman's mouth gaped open. The room they were in was more than 100 square meters and could even fit the corpses of ordinary general-level demon beasts. After thinking for a moment, she hesitated and said, "This is the biggest indoor room, but we have larger warehouses outdoors that are specially used for dealing with demon beasts. If you don't find it troublesome, you can come with me." Zhou Hao nodded. "All right." A smile appeared on the woman's exquisite face as she enthusiastically let Zhou Hao out of the shop. After entering the elevator, before she could answer Zhou Hao, a woman with heavy makeup walked in. When this woman saw this, she couldn't help but sneer. "Yo, Xiao Ying not bad. You actually lowered yourself and began to receive guests. Tisk tisk, I thought you were always so arrogant. It's not that people in our materials industry have no pride, but in the end, you just have to do what you can to survive. It looks like you finally understand." Xiao Ying's expression turned ugly, but she did not reply. After all, the client was right next to her. It would be bad if she left a bad impression. Soon, they arrived at the first floor. Zhou Hao followed Xiao Ying out of the Alliance building. The woman with heavy makeup snorted and secretly followed behind. She wanted to see if Xiao Ying was really receiving a guest. The warehouse that Xiao Ying mentioned was not too far away. This was also a concentrated area with many warehouses that were used to deal with demon beast materials. Entering the warehouse on the 3rd floor, a staff member who was chatting saw Xiao Ying and immediately greeted her. Xiao Ying waved her hand and looked at Zhou Hao with a smile. "Sir, this place should be big enough, right?" "Hardly." He waved his hand. 2 34-meter-long demon beast corpses appeared out of thin air. Xiao Ying nodded secretly. The armor that came with spatial storage were at the very least general level. Thus, she deduced that the person before her should be a master-level expert. As she was thinking about how to rope him in, she looked at the corpse. "Miss Xiao, these two are the red spot python and the iron-tooth alligator. There are no injuries on the surface of the corpses. They should have been killed by a strong force," a technical worker whispered. "Killed without injuries." Xiao Ying's exquisite face revealed shock. To be able to kill the red spot python and the iron-tooth alligator without leaving any injuries on the body would require strength that was at least that of a high-level grandmaster. The woman with heavy makeup behind also revealed a shocked expression. She was surprised to see that Xiao Ying was not actually receiving guests and selling her body. Instead, she was really doing business and was even dealing with such a high-level client. Zhou Hao frowned and said, "Can we deal with the corpses now?" Qiao Ying'er returned to her senses and hurriedly ordered the personnel to cut the corpses. At the same time, she said respectfully, "Sir, the red spot python and the iron-tooth alligator are both low-level demon generals. Since the corpses are intact, I'll give you a price of 7.2 million yuan for both of them. What do you think?" 7.2 million. Zhou Hao muttered. This price was not low. The low-level demon generals were usually only about 3 million each. Just as he was about to agree, a voice sounded, "I'll pay 8 million. Chapter 29. Qiao Ying'er immediately looked over. Seeing that it was the woman with heavy makeup, her expression changed drastically as she said angrily, "Yan Shui, don't push my limits." This kind of client-snatching behavior was common in the Underground Alliance Mall, but Qiao Ying'er did not expect Yan Shui to have followed her all the way to the warehouse. Yan Shui directly ignored Qiao Ying'er and slowly walked in front of Zhou Hao. She smiled coquettishly and said, "Sir, how about that 8 million? Consider it a friendship price." Qiao Ying'er was furious and worried. 7.2 million was already the maximum of what she could offer, and she was barely making any money. But Yan Shui actually offered 8 million. It was clear that she didn't mind losing money to earn the favor of this expert. Just as Qiao Ying'er thought that Zhou Hao would agree. A faint voice stunned her. "Sorry, I started my business with this Miss Qiao first." Yan Shui was also stunned, but she quickly reacted and shouted again, 9 million, I'll pay 9 million. Qiao Ying'er, who had just lost her worry and was feeling joyful, felt her heart skip a beat again. Zhou Hao frowned and ignored this woman named Yan Shui. He looked at Qiao Ying'er and said, "Miss Qiao, are we still going to do business?" Qiao Ying'er was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly said, "Yes, of course." She hurriedly ordered the other stun technicians, "Stop daydreaming. Hurry up and cut these two demon beast corpses." "Yes, Miss Qiao." Immediately, 7 to 8 technicians surrounded the red spot python and the iron-tooth alligator and started cutting them. When Yan Shui saw this, she could not help but say, "Sir, 9 million is already the maximum I can pay. Seeing that I was willing to add an extra million just to befriend you, won't you consider it?" As she spoke, she took a few steps forward and almost pressed her body against Zhou Hao. Qiao Ying'er gritted her teeth as she watched this. How could she not understand that Yan Shui was using her body as capital after her bribery attempt had failed? In the past, many customers from other shops had been snatched away by Yan Shui through such despicable means. Zhou Hao pushed Yan Shui away and said impatiently, "Do you not understand human language? I already said that Miss Qiao was the one who started the business with me. Don't get in the way of our business." As soon as these words were spoken, not only was Qiao Ying'er stunned, but even Yan Shui was stunned. You. Before she could finish speaking, Zhou Hao interrupted her. "Miss Qiao, aren't you going to kick an outsider like her out?" Qiao Ying'er reacted and hurriedly ordered the others to get Yan Shui out of the warehouse. Seeing this scene, Yan Shui was furious. She was, after all, the materials manager of the Underground Alliance Mall. How could he not give her any face after she had tried so hard to suck up to him? She was outraged. She immediately snorted angrily. "What's there to be cocky about? I've seen many experts. You only killed 2 low-level demon generals, who do you think you are?" Swoosh. Zhou Hao swept his cold gaze over. Yan Shui's body tensed up as she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar, making it difficult for her to breathe. However, she persisted and gritted her teeth. "What? Did I say something wrong? If you really have the ability, why don't you go and kill a high-level demon general?" At this point, her eyes turned to Qiao Ying'er. "Qiao Ying'er, you shouldn't feel so smug either. How can the materials of 2 low-level demon generals be worth anything? You'll pay for this in the future. Xiao Ying'er's expression was ugly as she said coldly, what are you all waiting for? Chase her out. Soon, 2 staff members from the warehouse walked over. Yan Shui immediately screamed, Xiao Ying'er, you slut. If any of you dare to lay a finger on me today, don't even think about continuing to work in the Alliance Mall anymore. Xiao Ying'er clenched her fists tightly. She knew very well the consequences of offending Yan Shui, but at this moment, she could not back down. Just as 2 staff members were about to carry Yan Shui and throw her out, a low voice sounded. Wait. Hearing this voice, Yan Shui's eyes lit up. She turned around and saw a familiar figure. She seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw and hurriedly said, Supervisor, Supervisor Han, quickly help me. Supervisor Han, who was dressed in a suit and leather shoes, walked over. He swept his gaze and asked in a deep voice, what's going on? Supervisor Han was in charge of all the shops on the 12th floor of the underground Alliance Mall. Even Xiao Ying'er did not dare to neglect him. She quickly stepped forward and told him the whole story. Supervisor Han nodded. Miss Xiao, this is your fault. His voice was calm. Manager Yan is also just trying to help the client. How could you kick her out of the warehouse? When Xiao Ying'er heard this, her exquisite and beautiful face instantly turned pale. She was not stupid and could tell that Supervisor Han was obviously helping Yan Shui. The other technical staff were also furious, but they did not dare to say anything. After all, ever since planet Earth had undergone great changes, it was not easy to get a job in the city. If she provoked the wrong people, her job might be gone. At this moment, Yan Shui walked back to the warehouse proudly and looked down at Xiao Ying'er. Supervisor Han, the origins of these 2 demon beast corpses seem to be quite suspicious. We have to seal the warehouse and examine it properly to prevent any infiltration from the foreign races. Supervisor Han immediately understood and had a solemn expression. Manager Yan is not wrong. It just so happens that I have come here to inspect the warehouse. He looked at Xiao Ying'er. How about this, Miss Xiao, we'll lock down the warehouse for a few hours first. After the inspection is over and everything is confirmed, we'll continue operating the warehouse. Xiao Ying'er's pale face was filled with despair, but she still said unwillingly, Supervisor Han, you have no right to seal my warehouse. Supervisor Han chuckled. Yes, I don't, but District Head Wu does. With that said, he immediately took out his phone. His fingers moved around and the video call connected quickly. District Head Wu, it's me, he said enthusiastically. Oh, it's Supervisor Han. What's the matter? A middle-aged man appeared in the video. Supervisor Han briefly described the matter. Let me see those 2 demon beasts, said District Head Wu casually. Supervisor Han hurriedly swept his phone towards the red spot python and the iron-tooth alligator. Xiao Ying'er's heart sank. Chapter 30. In the Alliance Mall District Head Office. Wu Tao looked at the video on his phone. Actually, when Supervisor Han explained the situation, he could already tell what was going on. He undoubtedly knew that Supervisor Han wanted to take the opportunity to mess with Xiao Ying'er. After all, he had also heard of Xiao Ying'er's beauty and reputation on the 12th floor. Many supervisors had their eyes on her. This Han fellow probably just wanted to take advantage of the situation. Forget it, I'll just help him this once. He's always been filial to me. Wu Tao thought to himself as he watched the video casually. Suddenly, the video flashed past a red armor and landed on the 2 demon beast corpses. Originally, Wu Tao didn't think much of it, but when he saw that the corpses were the red spot python and the iron-tooth alligator, he immediately stood up. Red spot python, iron-tooth alligator. Aren't these the demon beasts from the red swamp forest? He couldn't help but recall how earlier, an important figure had repeatedly reminded him to pay attention to the appearance of the two beasts in the materials department. Red armor. Yes, red armor. Could it be? His breathing quickened as he shouted into the phone, "Supervisor Han, wait here. I'll be right there." He did not dare to neglect it for a moment. That important figure had said that if he did this right, the position of district director in the Huadong Underground Alliance Mall would belong to him. However, if he couldn't find any clues, he would even lose his position as district head. Wu Tao was burning with anxiety. He ran out of the office as fast as he could and rushed towards the elevator. What happened? I don't know. Why is District Head Wu in such a hurry? Many staff members looked at District Head Wu in surprise. Soon, a well-informed person shouted, "Something happened at the Area B warehouse. Someone is making things difficult for Chiao Ying-er." Swoosh. Swoosh. Many people came to a realization. Chiao Ying-er was the top beauty of the 12th level's materials department. Countless people coveted her, but no one dared to really make a move on her. Unexpectedly, this time, someone actually did. Almost all the employees did not want to miss such a big event, so they followed quietly. In any case, their district head had already gone over, so no one was watching them. At the Area B warehouse, Supervisor Han did not expect District Head Wu to have such a big reaction. After hanging up the video, he suppressed the doubts in his heart and smiled faintly. "Chiao Ying-er, District Head Wu will be arriving soon. He should have the authority to lock down your warehouse." Yan Shui glanced at Chiao Ying-er proudly and sneered in her heart. So what if she was pretty? She was still at their mercy. Chiao Ying-er felt deep despair, and her body trembled. At this moment, Zhou Hao, who had been silent all this while, spoke up. "You guys are too much." He had only wanted to sell some demon beast materials and ended up encountering such a situation. He kept himself from interfering, but the other party was too overbearing and wanted a yard after taking an inch. In the end, they even said that there was a problem with the demon beast materials he was selling. It was simply too much. Supervisor Han smiled and said, "Friend, please wait for a while. As long as we're done with the examination, you'll get all the money you deserve." Zhou Hao said coldly, "On what basis are you making me wait? And who are you to declare my materials problematic?" As soon as he finished speaking, Yan Shui shouted impatiently, "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to Supervisor Han like that?" The smile on Supervisor Han's face also disappeared, and his voice became cold. "I am the supervisor of the materials department on the 12th floor of the Alliance Mall. Naturally, I have the right to inspect all transactions. If you don't cooperate, I will have reason to suspect that you're a spy sent by the foreign races." Zhou Hao smiled. But his smile was cold. A spy sent by the foreign races. He took a step forward and was about to circulate the blood essence in his body. Chiao Ying-er suddenly walked over and stood in front of Zhou Hao. She gritted her teeth and said firmly, "Supervisor Han, you can seal my warehouse, but you can't slander my clients. Please take back what you just said. Otherwise, even if I have to go bankrupt, I will sue you to the Supreme Council Hall." Supervisor Han was shocked. The Supreme Council Hall was the organization with the strictest policies on planet Earth. Even if there was nothing wrong with him, he would still lose a layer of skin if he went in. "Who are you trying to scare?" Yan Shui sneered and said disdainfully, "Do you think you are really capable of something like that, Chiao Ying-er? You won't be able to do that no matter how many times you prostitute yourself." Only then did Supervisor Han realize that the Supreme Council didn't just deal with anybody. He was almost frightened. He immediately said bluntly, "Chiao Ying-er, don't even think about opening another warehouse again." At this point, he would not hold back. At this moment, there were already many people crowded around. Most of them were from other warehouses. Seeing this situation, they all sighed. Xiao Ying'er is done for this time. Yeah, that Han guy is known for being vengeful. If you offend him, don't even think about working in the materials department. It can't be helped. Xiao Ying'er is too beautiful and refuses to lower her head and smile. It's already impressive for her to last until now. Just as the crowd was discussing, Wu Tao forcefully opened a path and rushed to the entrance of the warehouse.